This is a video by Richpin. Today we're working on a Saturn S series. This happens to be a 1998 model. And today we're changing out the radiator. Now the first thing we need to do is get the vehicle up in the air. I've got the vehicle up on ramps right here because we need to get underneath so we can drain the coolant. Now the first thing we're going to do is take off this bottom plastic cover underneath the radiator. You don't have to do this, but it makes it a little easier to get at the drain valve on the radiator. It's held on by 4 of these little push pins. Now I've taken out 3 of them, and here is the last one. This is what they look like. I'm sure you're familiar with them. And then that piece will come right down. Okay, now we have to open up the drain valve and drain the coolant out of the radiator. This is one of these original types that you turn, has a little groove right here, a little ramp, and you'll twist it and then pull it out and then twist it. Now that we have it in the open position like that, now we can release the cap above and let the air into the system. And now we can let that totally drain out. Next we need to take the resonator box out of the way. It's held on by 1 little push pin. Take that out of the way. Remove the box. Next we're going to take the top of the airbox cover off and the duct to the throttle body. Squeeze this clip on the throttle body end off, and then you can remove the duct. Next we're going to remove the air box itself. It's held on by 3 10mm headed bolts. Now what I've done is I've loosened the bolts, but I've left them in place so you don't drop the bolts. So just take the box, gently remove it so you don't lose the bolts. Now here is the air temp sensor right here. Just squeeze it, take the sensor off. Now you've got your box with the bolts already there. Now the next thing we need to do is remove this wire loom from the radiator fan shroud. There are these 2 clamps right here that clamp the loom to those. We have to open those up to remove the loom from the radiator shroud. Now to open up that clamp, just take a small screwdriver, come right here on the side, and twist that sideways, and that will open it up so you can get the loom out. Now do the same thing to the other one. Now another thing, while you're down here by that loom, be a good idea to remove the connector to the oxygen sensor. So when you pull the fan shroud out, it'll give you some play. There's a little button right here. Just push that down and you'll be able to pull that connection apart. The next thing we need to do is take out this 10mm head bolt that secures the fan shroud to the radiator. And if you have an automatic transmission, this would be the time to take either the lines off of the radiator or take the lines off of the transmission. Okay, now we can take the fan shroud out of the way. We want to just lift up on it. There's a clip or support on the right side, and once you get that loose, now wiggle it by the hose on the left side here. Now the tough part is to get it by the AC lines. It's a little bit of a tight fit there. and then she'll come out. Now once you get it this far, you can remove the electrical, can you see this? Move the electrical wire from the fan shroud. There is a little lock on this electrical connection, and then you'll pry that off and you'll be able to remove the fan shroud. Now, while the fan shroud is off, if you have a bad motor, now's the time to change that out. There is a nut right here that secures the fan on. It's a left-handed nut, so be warned about that. Okay, take that out of the way, and then the motor secures to the shroud by 3 10mm headed bolts. Okay, once those are out of the way, you can take the motor out. There's the motor, and you can change that out. Next, we need to remove the 2 10mm headed bolts that secure the AC condenser to the radiator. Now what I've done here is I put a piece of wire up to the headlight support that is supporting this side of the condenser, because once you remove these bolts it can drop down on you. So that will hold it up in the air, make it a little easier. And we need to remove these 2 10mm head bolts. There isn't much room here, so that's why I'm using a open-end box. There's the bolt, and look for the other one on the other side in the same position. Next, we need to remove the bottom radiator hose, and we need to remove the top radiator hose. Now this bottom hose can give you trouble. There is no way to hold it out of the way, and the radiator tends to snag it on the way up. So take a piece of wire. I've got a little hook on the end. You don't want a sharp edge. You don't want it to dig into the hose. So get my hand out of the way here. So we just put that in the hose, and that will secure it out of the way, so when we pull the radiator up it's not in our way. Next, we need to remove this wire that goes up to the AC compressor. Now there's a clamp identical to the ones that were on the radiator shroud, so we need to open those up. Now that wire is clear. Now right above that wire is the top mount for the radiator. Now there's one on both sides, and they're held on by a 10mm headed nut. So we need to remove that. Okay, now we can take our radiator and we can move it back. Take our mounts off, out of the way. Now once the mounts are out of the way, there's nothing securing the radiator in. The AC condenser will stick a little bit. Now, I think we're clear of the condenser. And here comes the radiator. There it is. It's all out. One last thing. If you're replacing your radiator with an aftermarket one, these little nuts right here that secure the AC condenser and the fan shroud, reuse those. Take them off. And reuse them. Reason being is the ones on the replacement radiators are a different length and you have to get longer bolts. Now before we put our new radiator in, what we'll do is we can take this foam piece right here, transfer that over to our new radiator, and then we have this little clamp right here we'll transfer over. And there isn't much to it. All it is just a matter of putting it back the same way you took it out, and that's it. You've just changed a radiator on your Saturn S series.